centuries before any empire had unified laws, money systems, or military forces. There was something far stronger that silently connected the ancient world: trade prices. Not government orders, not country lines, not military conquest. Simply the unstoppable force of buying and selling. When Rome sent its soldiers across the Mediterranean Sea, traders had already accomplished something that would take Rome hundreds of years to make official. They transformed a broken, dangerous, multi-language world into one connected economic zone, where products held steady value from one coast to another, and the people behind this weren't kings or rulers. They were businessmen. This is where wealth, influence, and the past meet. And things are never as straightforward as they appear. To grasp how revolutionary this truly was, imagine the Mediterranean area around 1200 years before Christ. This wasn't a connected world. It was complete disorder by today's measures. City-states constantly appeared and disappeared. Kingdoms battled over coastal territories. Ocean pirates controlled the open seas. No shared justice system existed, no universal money. No central power that could enforce deals between different regions. Most humans never went beyond a few miles from their birthplace, and almost nobody had faith in strangers. In theory, this environment should have stopped large-scale business completely. Yet somehow, by the early 1,000 years BCE, products were traveling across thousands of kilometers with remarkable reliability. Tin coming from Iberia, copper arriving from Cyprus, cedar trees from the Levant region, hand dyes, fabrics, glass items, and metal goods passing through harbors that shared zero political connections but shared everything economically. The masterminds behind this framework were the Phoenicians. They never created an empire. They never controlled massive armies. They never forced their rules on defeated populations. Actually, they never truly brought anything together through military strength. What they accomplished instead was much more clever and much longer lasting. They created a connection system. Phoenician culture consisted of tiny coastal city-states like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos. These cities were defenseless. They had no large inland territories. They couldn't withstand long military conflicts. Their protection didn't come from defensive structures or soldiers. It came from vessels, connections, and their good name. If business collapsed, they collapsed. That limitation determined everything. Because when you lack raw power, you must establish credibility. And when you establish credibility on a massive scale, you automatically start making value consistent, whether that's your goal or not. The first thing Phoenician merchants made consistent wasn't actual prices, it was conduct. In a world without global courts or binding agreements, business relied completely on ongoing relationships. A trader who scammed someone might gain once, then vanish permanently from the system. Harbors communicated with one another. Merchants exchanged intelligence. Your reputation moved quicker than sailing ships. Credibility became a type of security deposit. This is the aspect today's people often miss. Credibility wasn't about morality. It was about economics. If you were dependable, you stayed in. If you weren't, you got kicked out. And getting kicked out meant business extinction. When courts don't exist, credibility becomes incredibly costly to destroy. Once that credibility system was established, prices naturally started matching up. Not because someone dictated them, but because market competition forced them. Phoenician merchants mainly handled commodities that people broadly understood and that had reasonably steady demand. Metals such as copper and tin, which combined created bronze. Silver measured by heaviness, not official stamped coins. Wood used for building ships and structures. Products whose worth wasn't random, but practical. This is where the framework silently clicked together. If tin cost less in Iberia and cost more in the eastern Mediterranean, traders shipped it eastward. If copper was plentiful in Cyprus and rare everywhere else, vessels changed their paths accordingly. Every profitable price gap attracted competitors, and competitors eliminated the gap. This method, purchasing where something costs little and selling where it's expensive, isn't modern banking. It's arbitrage, and arbitrage existed before empires did. The more Phoenician merchants transported goods, the more price differences vanished. Eventually, a trader in Carthage couldn't drastically overprice copper if rivals knew what copper actually cost elsewhere. A harbor couldn't economically isolate itself if ships could just sail past it. Market forces corrected prices quicker than any monarch could. There was no grand strategy, no ruling committee of traders determining what tin should be valued at. Standardization appeared as a side effect of effectiveness. The merchants who survived were those who adjusted to market truth. Those who refused disappeared. But the true edge the Phoenicians possessed wasn't vessels or metals, it was intelligence. They knew where crop failures had occurred. They knew which mining operations were experiencing floods. They knew when military conflicts interrupted delivery routes. In a time when information moved at the pace of wind and rowing, controlling intelligence meant controlling power. This enabled them to move before others even realized what was unfolding. They didn't simply react to prices, they predicted them. And through prediction, they reduced instability across territories. Supply shortages in one location were balanced by stock from another. Excess production was consumed before it destroyed local worth. Gradually, local producers modified their expectations. Farmers, miners, and artisans started pricing products not just on local situations, but on what the broader Mediterranean marketplace would accept. Harbors became coordinated, interior economies fell behind. And with that coordination came something never seen before. An unofficial economic framework that completely ignored political divisions. The Phoenicians never conquered the Mediterranean. But they made it understandable, reliable, exchangeable. Economic unity didn't come after empire. Empire came after economic unity. That's the piece history books frequently reverse. And it's also where this story starts changing direction. Because once prices stabilize, once markets expand, once worth becomes reliable across territories, authority pays attention. Once prices started stabilizing across the Mediterranean, something quiet but permanent occurred. Business stopped being neighborhood-based. Worth stopped being individually negotiable. And marketplaces started functioning at a level that no individual city or leader could completely manage. This is where the Phoenician framework reached its highest point, and where it quietly became exposed. Standardized prices made business quicker. Quicker business made trading more lucrative. And lucrative trading catches eyes, not from fellow merchants, but from governments. Because once worth becomes reliable, it becomes something you can tax. And once it's taxable, authority enters the picture. Greek city-states were among the earliest to make official what Phoenician merchants had been doing unofficially for generations. They introduced stamped currency, not to create worth, but to verify it. A coin wasn't a fresh concept. It was silver by weight with a government promise attached. The marketplace already recognized what silver was valued at. The government simply stamped it and declared control over the transaction. Rome would later master this approach. The Roman Empire didn't invent Mediterranean business, it took it over. Harbors were already linked. Prices were already matching. Delivery routes were already charted. What Rome brought was military strength, soldiers to protect trade pathways, rules to make contracts official, and taxation to pull value from a framework that traders had constructed without imperial approval. This is the massive irony of Phoenician achievement. By making markets effective, they made them readable. And once markets become readable, they become controllable. The Phoenicians never failed because their framework broke down. They failed because it succeeded too perfectly. As governments entered, unofficial credibility systems were replaced by official organizations. Reputation transformed into regulation. Currency replaced weighed metal. Taxation replaced negotiated trading. And traders, who previously operated within a flexible scattered system, discovered themselves working inside strict frameworks built to channel value upward. The businessmen adjusted. Some succeeded. But power had relocated. Markets had connected the Mediterranean before empires possibly could. But empires would eventually determine who gained most from that connection. And this sequence didn't stop in ancient times. Jump forward to today's world, and the structure feels recognizable, just expanded beyond imagination. There is no worldwide government, no single power that controls international business. Yet somehow, prices for oil, grain, copper, and transportation line up across continents. A crop failure in one territory creates waves through worldwide markets. A blockage in one shipping channel increases costs thousands of miles distant. Just like the ancient Mediterranean, worth today gets coordinated by connections, not borders. The US dollar works much like Phoenician silver once worked. Not because it's legally required everywhere, but because marketplaces trust it. Credibility, available money, and intelligence give it strength long before politics enters. And just as ancient merchants priced products based on Mediterranean standards, today's economies price danger, obligations, and investments based on worldwide standards they can't control. Globalization didn't begin with cargo ships or computerized trading systems. It began when traders realized wastefulness was costly and organization was profitable. But here's where today's comparison becomes troubling. Prices today are globally synchronized, paychecks are not. Products adjust immediately to worldwide situations. Workers adjust slowly, locally, and often through hardship. Rising costs spread quicker than earnings. Investment prices respond before paychecks arrive. And the people nearest to intelligence and available money, financial experts, major institutions, governments, adjust first. The framework still benefits those who spot price shifts early and hurts those who feel them late. Nothing basic has shifted, only the magnitude. And just like in the ancient world, authority didn't vanish. It relocated itself. Governments learned to tax movement instead of land. Big businesses learned to exploit regulation differences instead of location differences. And regular people were left dealing with a framework that feels unclear, remote, and increasingly beyond their influence. Here's the key lesson the Phoenicians accidentally taught us. Authority doesn't build markets. Markets build authority. Those who make value consistent don't need to govern visibly. They shape results silently. And once frameworks become enormous enough, no individual force can totally control them. Only guide them, take from them, or protect themselves from their effects. Empires appear believing they control marketplaces. Marketplaces survive by outlasting empires. This is why economic history isn't merely about yesterday. It's about spotting patterns. Because the forces that directed ancient business still control today's finance, just quicker, bigger, and harder to see. If you grasp how prices align, if you grasp who wins when they shift, and if you notice that coordination always comes before control, you stop confusing steadiness with security. History doesn't copy itself exactly, but if you don't learn it, it'll destroy you regardless. If this changed how you see things, hit subscribe. History holds the solutions. I'll reveal where to find them.